Good morning. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. I'm Barry Bryson, and we're continuing our study of the Gospel of Mark by finishing up chapter 1. Mark's Gospel is written at such a fast pace, but we're not going to be rushing through it because it is so packed full of detail, intentionally so, that I really believe Mark and perhaps Peter, who's the most likely source for the Gospel, they're inviting us to stop a minute and think and go back and notice the details and ask questions, which is what we've been doing. This is Jesus healing a leper. And we're going to read verses 40 through 45. We're going to finish up the chapter today. A leper came to him, beseeching him, and falling on his knees before him, and saying, "If you are willing, you can make me clean." And moved with compassion, he stretched out his hand and touched him. And he said, "I am willing, be cleansed." And immediately the leprosy left him, and he was cleansed. And he, meaning Jesus, sternly warned him, and immediately sent him away. And he said to him, "See that you say nothing to anyone, but go show yourself to the priest, and offer for your cleansing what Moses commanded for a testimony to them." But he went out and began to proclaim it freely, and to spread the news about Jesus to such an extent that Jesus could no longer publicly enter a city, but stayed out in unpopulated areas, and they were coming to him from everywhere. Well, there's a lot here. I want to point out that we have a parallel with John the Baptist. People are coming to Jesus the way they came to John the Baptist, as he's out in unpopulated areas. We see Jesus' celebrity continuing to grow. A leper comes to Jesus, and we've already talked about leprosy and about, is this Hansen's disease, is it not? None of that's relevant to the text. In the old days, there was no treatment for Hansen's disease. They had to assume that if someone had a rash or contact dermatitis or poison oak, that they had leprosy until it was proved that they did not have leprosy. And the laws of Moses were very clear about what you did while you were symptomatic and what you had to do, and the ceremonies you had to go through to demonstrate that you were well again. And that factors into what's happening today, because it is a violation of the law that this man came this close to Jesus. And it is a violation of the law that Jesus touched him. Well, not necessarily a violation of the law, but it made Jesus severely, deeply unclean. And yet we know why he did. We know why both men did what they did. Leprosy was a death sentence, and it was about as bad a death sentence as you could get if you actually had leprosy, because you were cut off from all human contact, except with your fellow lepers. And it took so long, and it was so miserable and painful. And so we know why he would run up to Jesus, because of his faith in Jesus to do something about this. He says, "If you're willing, you can make me clean." That's such an absolute expression of faith, and it's a humble expression of faith, because he doesn't make claims, he doesn't make demands. He's saying, if you want to, if it's your will be done. In other words, your will be done is the prayer that he's praying when he asks Jesus to make him clean. And it says Jesus was moved with compassion for him. Now, I want to stop for just a second and point this one fact out. We're told Jesus was tired. We're told at times he was angry. We're told, details about Jesus and about the way he feels about things. That he loves this one immediately. That he was frustrated. That he groaned. We're told all those things. But whenever we're directly told the motivation for his actions, Jesus did this because he felt that. It's always the same motivation. It's compassion. The motivating factor for Jesus' actions in all 4 Gospels is compassion. Jesus is moved with compassion. That word in the original Greek literally means it's a gut reaction. It's from the word for your gut, your GI tract, your gut, splagne, your gut. That's where you feel it. You feel it in here. We still talk about in the pit of my stomach, I know, what I feel in my gut. It's an impulse for altruism, It's the impulse that we have to help someone in need. It's that pure thing that Satan can't get to and corrupt, like he can corrupt all of our other good impulses. That's what has motivated Jesus. That's what is expressed to us in the story of the Good Samaritan. And that's why Jesus stretches out his hands and touches him. Lest we think that Jesus doesn't care about the law, the first thing he says is, don't you go do anything else before you go out and do what the law says to prove that you're cleansed. And then after you've satisfied the requirements of the law, then you can go about your business and resume your life and tell whomever you want. But that's not what he did. He started to tell everybody. And I think we understand that too. You know, it's that old church camp song. I said I wasn't going to sing about it, but I couldn't keep it to myself. I mean, that's exactly where he was. And Jesus' fame went everywhere to the point that he couldn't move about freely. Jesus is always trying to manage the timing of his ministry. And that's why I'll say things like, my hour is not yet, my time is not yet. I can't do this, my time is not yet. And that's factoring into what Jesus tells him as well. Jay Haley, the psychiatrist, Jay Haley, wrote a book, a pretty famous book back, I think it was the late 60s, early 70s. I should have grabbed it off my shelf here and looked up the copyright, called The Power Tactics of Jesus, in which he accuses Jesus of being the master manipulator. That if you want to learn about, widening your brand recognition, look at Jesus, because he knows how to manipulate individuals and manipulate crowds. And this is one of the examples that he uses. Jesus said, don't tell anybody, knowing that everybody would. Well, I reject that. Not that Jesus is in any way ignorant of human nature, because he's not. We're told in the text that the reason did what he did in this event, in these verses, is because he felt compassion for this person. That's what motivates Jesus, not self-interest. It's compassion for others. It's the opposite of self-interest. And I just don't want to leave chapter 1 until we mention that. We'll pick up with chapter 2 next time. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes.